Hey guys, it's Sasha. The world is obsessed with Bitcoin. One company after another is now realizing that instead of just being good at whatever it is that the company does or is meant to do, it is actually far easier to ignore all of that and just buy Bitcoin. Companies used to hold money in interest-generating accounts. Sometimes they would buy marketable securities. At times, they would even invest in other companies with spare cash. Now, companies are increasingly choosing to just hold Bitcoin, or should I say hodl Bitcoin. But not only that, companies used to borrow money in order to fund growth. And companies that were early stage before they were turning a profit would borrow money to keep going. Companies used to borrow money when the going got tough or when they needed to invest money back into the business. Today, now, companies are borrowing money, like a lot of money, just so that they can then use that debt to buy more Bitcoin. The latest company to adopt this new strategy is GameStop. The company became famous as a meme stock in 2021 when the stock went from less than $4 a share to over $500 in the space of just a few weeks. Since that happened, in the last 5 years, GameStop's revenue has fallen by 40% because, less and less people are going to their shops to buy secondhand computer games, just not something that people really do as much. And the actual underlying business of GameStop is failing. The company is dying and they haven't figured out how to change that. Until now. GameStop has had negative free cash flow for over 2 years, so they are basically just losing money continuously. So the company issued a bunch of new stock and sold them to raise capital. They sold shares to retail investors and then they went and borrowed $1.3 billion. That's about 10 times the amount of annual profit in their most recent filings. And they went out and bought 4,710 Bitcoin for over $500 million. This, of course, is a well-trodden path, a strategy that was made popular by another company called MicroStrategy and their CEO, Michael Saylor. MicroStrategy is another has-been company. Their revenues have been falling continuously for several years now, and they consistently lose money. Their net profit margin in the most recent quarter was minus 4,000%. MicroStrategy's business is in the selling of outdated data analytics software that was outdated 20 years ago, that companies increasingly realize they don't actually need. But instead of trying to reinvent the company, instead of building new software, improving existing software, maybe launching new things that customers would actually want, software that doesn't suck, well, Michael Saylor has decided instead to turn MicroStrategy into a high-leverage Bitcoin play. Just ignore the business, buy Bitcoin. According to MicroStrategy, they now hold over 580,000 Bitcoin, which is worth around $61 billion at the moment. To buy all of this Bitcoin, MicroStrategy consistently issues more debt via convertible notes, by issuing shares, by any means possible, and then they use all of that debt, that mountain of debt, to just buy more Bitcoin. And the idea here, the sophisticated strategy, is that as long as the cost of debt is lower than the rate at which Bitcoin appreciates, well then MicroStrategy essentially is in the business of printing money. If Bitcoin was to significantly lose value, or at least not grow incredibly fast for any prolonged period of time, MicroStrategy, along with all of their investors, would be in very big trouble. At a recent publicity event, Michael Saylor was asked if MicroStrategy is planning to prove to investors that they actually hold the Bitcoin, that they actually went and bought it, by sharing, at least some of the wallets that belong to the company so that investors can look at the balances and check that the Bitcoin is actually there. And Michael Saylor said that they will not do that because sharing the wallet address is apparently a security risk. This coming from somebody who is a self-professed crypto expert. Of course, there is no actual security risk in just knowing the wallet address. I mean, everyone knows the first wallet of the person who launched Bitcoin, but it's more fun for investors to just not be quite sure if the money that they have piled into MicroStrategy is actually held in Bitcoin or if it's just sitting in a mysterious offshore bank account or some other investments somewhere else. And just a few days ago, we found out that Donald Trump's media company, the one that owns his Truth Social platform, is raising $2.5 billion so that they too can partake in this funfair and buy a load of Bitcoin. This, of course, was very predictable because just like the other companies that are so successful at doing this strategy, Trump media stock has collapsed recently after the initial pump and dump in 2022, and the company is taking on huge losses while making almost no revenue. So in terms of the financials, it's just perfect. They tick every box required to go and buy a whole load of Bitcoin. In their most recent quarterly filing, Trump Media made $821,000 in revenue. Yes, thousand, that's a bit less than $1 million in revenue in the quarter, while having over $40 million worth of costs. So of course, it is completely normal, almost expected, right, for a company that has less than $1 million worth of revenue per quarter to go and get $2.5 billion to buy some Bitcoin. This all comes on the back of Donald Trump and his family making hundreds of millions of dollars already from launching the Trump and Melania meme tokens just a few hours before Donald Trump became president again in January. Trump recently arranged a private dinner at his Virginia golf club for the top 220 buyers of his token, which stimulated a whole bunch of people to buy a bit more to try to be at this dinner. The way that this token works is that Trump and his family and businesses own 80% of the total tokens, and the remaining 20% are sold to gullible investors. Over 760,000 people who bought the Trump coin have lost money on their investment, while 58 wallets who got to buy in before the pump and dump started have all made more than $10 million each, according to Chain Analysis. According to social media posts from some of the attendees, Donald Trump spent just 25 minutes at the event, mostly speaking to the small group of the biggest holders of the token before abruptly leaving and not staying for any questions. The biggest holder of Trump coin, who was there present at this event, is Justin Sun, a mysterious Chinese crypto billionaire. In 2023, he was charged by the SEC for fraud and market manipulation. But after Sun invested money into Donald Trump's World Liberty Project, the court was ordered by the White House to suspend the lawsuit. Donald Trump announced last year that he will be the first crypto president, and he is definitely living up to that promise. Immediately after taking office, Donald Trump pardoned Rolls Ulbricht, who was sentenced to life in prison for running a money laundering and drug selling dark web marketplace called Silk Road. But it turns out that Ulbricht is also a crypto bro, so of course he was let out of prison 2 life sentences early the moment that that was found out. And to make sure that everyone can go and buy Bitcoin and Trump coin and whatever other flavor of coin that they want, the Department of Labor in the United States has just changed the rules so that you can now buy crypto assets inside your 401k. I know you've been waiting for this moment, right? Previously, crypto was not allowed to be held inside retirement portfolios because of the high risk associated with it. But it has since been discovered that Bitcoin will only ever actually go up at the rate of at least 25% per year forever. So why not let people keep all of their life savings in Trump coin, right? Earlier this week, Eric and Donald Trump Jr. came to the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas. Las Vegas is, of course, it's the perfect location for a crypto conference because you have this endless opportunity to gamble all of your money, right? Lose a bunch of your money. And then when you're finished, you can leave the conference and go to check out the casinos. So after making hundreds of millions of dollars from Donald Trump's fans by screwing them over with the Trump token, Eric and Donald Jr. have now become big household names in the world of crypto. One of the big topics at the event was that the United States government should perhaps follow in the footsteps of, GameStop and MicroStrategy and Donald Trump's companies and borrow money to invest in Bitcoin. You see, the US government is a perfect match for holding vast amounts of Bitcoin. Every year, the budget has a massive deficit, which is sort of similar to a company that loses a bunch of money every year. The US government debt pile is growing so fast that just paying the interest on this debt is now becoming problematic and one of the biggest parts of the federal budget. David Sachs, the White House crypto czar or whatever his job title is, was at this conference actively promoting this idea that the US government should go and borrow money and invest it in Bitcoin. So I guess the obvious solution is for the United States to go and do exactly that. Maybe go and borrow a few billion, a few $trillion and use that to buy Bitcoin, because then it will just sit there and all you have to do is wait for the magic money tree to go and make Bitcoin go up infinitely. And then when you come to sell, of course, there will be enough dollars to go and recoup all of that, and you'll be able to use all of that money to pay off the entire government debt, and maybe then send all the rest on top of that, all the rest of the money out in stimulus checks, automatically making every US citizen a millionaire. Looking back at some of the biggest stock market crashes in history, in many of them, companies that don't make any money were being valued on the back of pure hype and speculation, whatever the hype and speculation of the time was. We saw it in the dot-com bubble, we saw it in 1929, and the famous anecdote from the 1920s is that the euphoria got so brazen that the shoeshine boy would go and tell you to invest in companies that make no money at insane valuations because, well, reasons. And maybe this time is different. Maybe this time companies borrowing vast amounts of money so that they can buy Bitcoin, because Bitcoin only ever goes up and will only ever go up in the future. All of these companies will obviously become incredibly rich. Or maybe, just maybe, we're witnessing yet another euphoria cycle right in front of us, where future generations will be looking at their textbooks and wondering whether all of those investors actually really thought that there was this new license to print money, a never-ending money printing machine, and that everyone buying into this infinite money glitch would obviously make a load of money, whether people genuinely believed that everyone who partook in this would all automatically get rich and be able to multiply their money by, I don't know, 1,000%, 100,000%, whatever. It's always funny when you read about it in textbooks, but it's even more funny when you get to see it in front of you every day. Thank you for watching. See you later.